I'm invested in the designers in my team as people, like regardless of whether they work with us or move on. And I think that's one of the great things about what I get to do now, is that it's creative and it fits into all the things that I love to do.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. This week we are chatting to Gemma Faerch. She's a designer and currently working at one of South Africa's big banks, ABSA Bank, as a design director. But I will leave the big intro to her, and we're so excited to have you, Gemma. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. Yes,
Thanks,
so as you
Gemma.
said, I'm a design director. I work at ABSA, so I've been a design director for a couple of years now. And I think I've just had my 4th year anniversary at ABSA this January. So excited to have a chat about all the things today.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for having me.
Definitely.
That's a big anniversary, hey? 4 years. Wow.
I think as like millennials and Gen Zs, like 4 years is like your furniture now,
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely say that is 100% true. But maybe if we rewind way back more than 4 years, can you give us a intro? It can be long, it can be short, just whatever feels natural to you to, where have you been? What's your journey like?
It's not a journey that I generally go into or have gone into detail in the past. But I did recently write an article where I laid it all bare. The kind of the good and the bad and the ugly of kind of my career path, which was not as straight as I would like to have been. So way back when I finished a fine art degree at Wits. So I have an honors in fine art, and I go into the working world, and I'm struggling to find my feet. I go into kind of a creative pursuit of being a studio photographer, and I do really well there. But I also start to kind of outgrow it a little bit, because it's kind of just paying for my car and just paying for my petrol to and from work, and like that gets old quick, And it's not like I had a fancy car. I had like a beaten up Corsa, and so then I started to look at kind of how I could increase my salary, and I started to chase jobs that were more salary based, so pay based. They weren't aligned with like my personal interests. So I love kids, don't get me wrong, but I was an au pair for a big family. I was a receptionist. I was a call center agent. I was a personal assistant. So I did a lot of jumping to try and find the pay bracket that I was looking for, to kind of find a little bit of comfort and stability in my life. And I was just really miserable because I was really bad at it. I was really bad at all of those things. I can barely keep my own diary straight, never mind somebody else's. And then you're going to give me 4 kids to keep their school diaries straight, and someone's at cricket and someone's at swimming, and then you got twins, and then you got someone's autistic, and so needless to say, it was a really difficult time in my career life, and it bled over into my personal life as well. I mean, you spend at least 8 hours of your day at your job, and so it may as well be something you enjoy doing. And so after, sorry,
Jem,
I can keep going. You just got to stop me.
No worries. So I think when the questions do come up, I'll just sort of put my hand up proverbially. But I think one thing that's interesting for me is sort of the approach you took to kind of finding the pay bracket that you were looking for. Like, did you sort of get advice from someone on how to do that? Or were you kind of like making your own way of what you thought would work?
I think it was more trying to make my own way, right? So like, because no one's going to advise you, leave the creative industry, leave the degree that you, or the thing that you're educated in, and go and find something completely new. Yes, you're going to find success dressing up as a Barney entertainer, which I did, by the way. I can juggle. They're not going to say, hey, that fine art degree marries really well with being an au pair, or it marries really well with being a receptionist. It doesn't and maybe I wasn't looking for advice in the right places, and I was just kind of steamrolling ahead in terms of, I want this, I want this for myself, and so this is how I'm going to make it happen. So I think that's a really good point. Find someone to actually give you some advice that you trust and that can help you.
Yeah, I think that's true in a sense, but I do think there's a time in your life where you just need to bulldoze things over a little bit. And like, I also say that because I kind of did a little bit of the same thing. Like, I mean, I didn't really ask for a lot of advice when I decided to drop out of varsity. It was just kind of like, I'm going to make my own path. And I think, there's a time and a place for that.
I remember, actually, Alfie, I remember talking to your brother when you did that, actually.
Was he panicking?
What is he doing? No! I work with Alfie's brother. He is the head of design at ABSA, and actually one of the reasons I'm in the position that I'm in. So he's a great mentor, and he's someone that's really cool to work with as well.
I quickly want to add on to Alfie's question around the way you went about looking for opportunities and looking for the different pay brackets. And usually people that are fresh out of varsity, you're really looking, or you have this clear vision of where you want to be or what the creative pursuit is. And you deliberately kind of left the creative world, jumping between different industries. Why at that point in your life was it important to look for a good salary bracket? Because we all know it's important, but it takes some people so long to prioritize that, as opposed to, the job they want.
I didn't have the luxury of, like, don't get me wrong, I consider myself extremely like privileged, and I was able to go to university, and like that's a gift in of itself. But I paid back student loans. I left, I was still living at home, thankfully. I was still able to do that after university. Do it for as long as you can. If somebody else can buy your curtains for you, let them do that. My goodness, I hate buying curtains. But kind of I needed to be self-sufficient. I needed to kind of move into a level of independence. It was just a necessity. It wasn't something that I could kind of take advantage of for much longer. Not that I was being kicked out of the house, not anything like that, but it was kind of not only an individual drive, but like an encouragement that was coming to kind of, okay, cool. Now you got to make your way. You've paid for university, because I was working while I was at university as well to try and pay that off, and little bits and pieces here and there. But like adulting, man, like you leave university and it's like adult life has hit you. And I see I talk to a lot of kind of young adults who are still at university, and they're like, yeah, I'm going to do my master's, I'm going to do my PhD. And I'm like, yes, do it now. Do it as like, be a university student for as long as you can possibly manage to afford to. It's such a privilege. It's such a gift that your parents will give you, that you can give yourself. It was some of the most fun and the most kind of freedom that I've ever had as a university student, and a wonderful experience. But yeah, adulting, that's why I had to learn. That's why I had to earn a salary. I couldn't be like, it wasn't fulfilling for me to just pay for a car and petrol. Yeah. Like that wasn't what like work was, I needed some enjoyment out of it.
Makes sense. Okay. So you said, as you were saying, you were kind of had started to bounce from place to place to kind of step into the salary bracket that you were looking for. So what was sort of next for you from there?
next from there was that, okay, I got fired twice, which is horrific and devastating and just like emotionally wrecking, right? And then I had to reassess. I was by that time I was already married. I was newly married. And so then it's, you know, like then the adulting becomes serious, right? Because then nobody's paying your bills but you. And I had to reassess. I had to kind of reframe and look at what I wanted, because I knew I was desperately unhappy in those positions and I wasn't setting myself up for success. I was looking at the bits and pieces of things that I was good at, and it was like, okay, juggling, okay, fine art, okay, okay, now I'm a rubbish receptionist, so let's scratch it. As I was looking at kind of what all of my skills were in a bucket, they didn't add up to anything significant. There was no job description that had all of those things in it. And so I had to critically look again at, okay, what's next for me? And so I decided to start a postgraduate certificate in education. So my honors allowed me to do that in 1 to 2 years. I could do that part-time. And I loved teaching, and I evidently loved entertaining, and so that was a really good kind of synergy for me to start to kind of step into that. But that also wasn't instant. So yes, I was going to invest in my education, no problem. I could do that with UNISA. I could do that within my budget, but then I still needed a job. That old chestnut, right? So there was an agency that was looking for a designer. Small agency. They did kiosks, websites, mobile apps, and I was like, yeah, okay. I'm like a qualified studio photographer. Like I even have the piece of paper that says like I'm a qualified studio photographer, so I can do Photoshop, right? And like Illustrator's can't be that hard. So I was like, okay, cool. Yes, no, here's my CV. They were like, okay, cool. But we have a test for you. We have a like trial. We have a challenge. And they were like, okay, so like make this thing. And can you make it in Illustrator? And I was like, yes. Okay, yes, I can. When do you need it? You know, like, YouTube. No problem. I got this. I can do this. YouTube. Within 3 days, YouTube taught me everything that I needed to know to get the job.
Wow.
And like, Illustrator is flipping hard. If you come from Photoshop, that flipping pen tool, man, I tell you what, I don't know, like, do people even use Illustrator anymore? But like,
I have it open.
But like, yeah, that was a huge learning curve for me, because that, and really empowering, right? Because it made me feel like I was in control of my destiny almost, you know, like, okay, cool. I had teacher in the background. That was my fallback. That was what I was going to do if everything fell to pieces, because the world always needs teachers. But like this job was also something really special, because the company was special, and because I had a really great boss. At the end, like before, when we get to, because China's coming, right? Like China's coming for me in the story. But when I left that job, in that job, I was a part of everything in the business. I was a part of pre-sales. I was a part of what was happening with the devs. I was a part of UX, UI. I didn't even know, but I was performing product design capabilities within that job. They just call me the graphic designer, which I was. But I was doing print. I was doing everything.
Yeah.
And they kind of encouraged me to be in front of their customers, to sell to them, to be a part of like that thought process. And so like I got to see a lot of areas of their business that I wouldn't have had access to had I just been the designer. And so much so that like when I left that job, I cried. I cried the biggest tears. I was like heartbroken when I left, and I chose to leave. I actually told my boss I would I would clean toilets filled with spiders if he was in charge. Like those are my two worst things, and like I would do that for him. And that's because he was so excellent. He was just like super open and like unafraid of who I was as a person. I'd never had that before.
Sure.
So I kind of have two questions for you. So the first is kind of like, so you mentioned the fact that before this you'd been fired from 2 previous jobs. So,
yes, I was hoping to gloss over that. Thanks.
I know. No. Unfortunately, we're not going to let that happen. but only because I think it's something that's really valuable for people, because not very many people go through that. Like, sometimes you kind of get politely asked to look for your next career opportunity. And it's such a big thing, especially because not very many people know what to expect from it, and there are not very many people around you that can give you the necessary support. So can you maybe speak a little bit around like what it was like? Because I'm sure you've got a lot of questions and a lot of like sort of insecurities bred from that at the next job that you eventually go to. What was that like for you?
So the first time it was an au pair / receptionist job that I was doing. So I would be a receptionist in the morning and then au pair in the afternoon. And it was really supposed to be a gateway into a job where I would source artists for them. That's really what I was trying to get
weird
to.
Connection.
And it never happened. It never like materialized. Oh yeah, it's coming. We're going to let you do it. And it never materialized. And it was for an affluent family. They lived in a big house. Their kids went to private schools. Their eldest son had Asperger's. I don't know. I'm giving you the reason about why I was not really the process. So long and short of it, the mom wasn't happy because I couldn't keep the schedule straight. And her kids were not performing at school, and it was my fault. It's a common problem with if you ask around people who au pair, the children's performance is then at school is then your responsibility. And then I also, as a receptionist, the working environment was super toxic, right? Like so they said it was like a family. They said it was like they said it was super creative, but really there was one person in charge, and if you had an idea alternate to his idea, then it didn't go down well. And I didn't know how to navigate that. I wasn't mature enough in my work my work life to kind of identify, this is a bad situation, I gotta go. And so what I did was I tried to patch it. I tried to say sorry, and I tried to say I'll do better next time. And so I was brought into a one warning. I didn't even know it was a warning. They just kind of brought me into a meeting and say, okay, well, you need to do these things better. But it wasn't officially called a warning. I didn't understand the seriousness of it. And then a couple of weeks later, they brought me into another warning. They told me they suggested I get psychological help, which was completely not necessary and completely like gaslighting and inappropriate. Gosh, I've made myself sound like a crazy person, but really the environment was that toxic. And they didn't give me a reason for it other than I wasn't able to keep a diary straight. Not just one diary, mind you, like 4 children's diaries as well as whatever was happening at the office. I don't know. So that was then an official warning where they were like, it was really aggressive and really accusatory, and like I burst into tears. It was just really, really, really awful and really scarring. Like honestly, very scarring. And and so I went through an official disciplinary process because I said, okay, cool, from here, I feel like this is unfair. I feel like this is not appropriate. And so I went to go and have a chat to a lawyer friend of mine, and he coached me through kind of that official disciplinary process and what to say and what to do. And even in the session, the mom was super petty, and they'd hired a mediator that was a friend of theirs who they'd given gifts to before we had our meeting. And it was just bad. It was bad. So like, that's the worst. That's one bad. Second bad, right? Second time I was fired, it was for a pharmaceutical company. They were selling Ayurvedic medicine that they were bottling in the office next to mine under conspicuous circumstances. So it was all herbal and not like anything to do with like dacha or whatever. But like, it was just not like the actual operation was not above board. And I hadn't been paid for 3 months. And I still stayed, and I still stayed, and I still stayed. He promised, and I still stayed, and I believe, like, man, I'm silly. I believe in people. When they tell me something, I believe them, you know? no, I'm going to pay you next week. Every week I would come into his, no, I'm going to pay you next week. And I got really, really cross, and I just threw my toys. I'm like, I'm leaving. I'm not coming back. Goodbye. And so it was, and then as I walked out the door, he said I was fired.
Okay, look, no, you weren't fired. That's not being fired. That's like the business can't afford to pay you.
But not like he was a crook. He was like, he was a thief, and he was stealing from his partners, and he was like, everything was underhanded, and so hard knocks, right? Yeah. And like, it's about picking yourself up after that, which can be really difficult. Finding somebody, like if you're not able to get to a point where you believe in yourself, to find somebody that you can work with that then repairs that, like that feeling that you're not worth anything.
I think that's very inspirational, actually. Like, it's such a horrible experience you had, and I think a lot of people, the recovery after that is not easy, and it's not quick. And it sounds like you say, you really just picked yourself up and, continued. And how on earth did you manage that? I think if someone treated me like that, I would go sit in a dark hole, move back with my parents, and just cry for 4 months.
There were a lot of tears. If I'm completely honest, there were a lot of tears. But I'm extremely lucky to, like, I have an amazing support system. My husband is phenomenal. Like he was like, you find the job that you need when you need it. Like, I support you. Like, and we're not flush, man. Like, we needed both salaries to survive. And I lived in someone's pool house, literally, like their cottage that overlooked the pool. Like, we had one car. We didn't live extravagantly. I don't know. I don't know.
You had to.
I was extremely lucky. Like we had to survive it. My husband's phenomenal. I have, like, my family's extremely supportive, but not enabling supportive. Because I think if I'd gotten to that point and been so low in terms of my self-esteem, and my parents would have just been like, oh, come, we'll just, we'll just pay for all the things. What do you need? We'll get, like, and they're not in a position to do that. I may not have been able to grow out of it. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. Yeah.
If someone tells that you're worthless and you believe it, and someone fixes it for you, then you don't learn anything from it.
I think you're super right, and we won't kind of stay too long on this on this sort of, like, difficult subject.
Can we get to China yet?
we will get there just now. I think I just want to say I just want to say one more thing, only because I know how important it is. Because, when this is something that's sort of in your past, it's difficult to talk about. And, like, I think in a sense I can relate a little bit because, I always, my career essentially started off with a failure. And that was kind of like not making it through university. And for a long time, it was something that was difficult for me to talk about openly. But one of the funny things is, the better you get at talking about it, the more you're able to help other people, because everybody has that initial stumble. Sometimes it's at the beginning, sometimes it's in the middle, sometimes it's even later in your life, in your 40s, and like the company goes under or you get retrenched. Yeah, exactly. And when it's happening to you, you feel so alone. You feel like, the rest of the world is just going ahead and life is super easy for them and everything's crumbling around you. And I feel like one of the things that helped me take the next step was somebody speaking about their specific failure. And so I think I just wanted to mention the fact that, firstly, I think it's amazing that you're able to speak about it. And I also think it's amazing that you're willing to speak about it in such an open fashion, especially now that you're a successful person in many people's eyes. It's good to be able to still relate back to the more humble beginnings. And maybe with no further ado, we'll let you take us on your trip to China.
Thank you. Just one point on that, because I think that's really empowering, right? So my brother-in-law, he's younger than me, and he was finishing, as I was going through all of this, he was finishing university and taking a gap year. But his gap year was not, I'm going to go to Peru and climb a mountain. His gap year was more self-depreciating than that. He was struggling to kind of figure out what was happening next, and he was feeling a bit stuck and a bit depressed. And now I'm saying this on the internet, but what I was able to do while I was in that situation, in a similar kind of depression to him, was actually sit him down and say, okay, cool, what's your plan? I'm home now because I don't have a job. I'm the only one that can sit here and do this with you. What do you want to be when you grow up? And he was like, oh, I don't know. I was like, okay, cool, but you are interested in this field. Let's go look at schools. Let's go do that. Come on, you and me will go. We'll go on Monday. I'll set an appointment. We'll go have a look. What about this school and this school and this school? Yeah, maybe this one. Okay, cool. Let's go. Do you want to bring a friend? Bring a friend. And I had this whole pep talk with him about how being forced to do work that you hate is the worst. It's soul destroying. There is nothing worse about spending your day doing something you hate, and I don't want that for you. So let's fix it. Let's get you into a field that you're interested in. Let's first get you educated. Then let's get you into the field that you're interested in. And like, I believe in you and I want you to win, and I don't want you to have to do the same thing. So Alfie, I totally get you. And I'm grateful that you said that, because this is flipping hard. I never tell anybody these stories, and I'm doing it here. So China. You want to hear about China?
I do want to hear about China.
This is the reason I left that beloved job that I was in. So in that small agency. So I found that I was super comfortable. I knew what I was doing. I was getting the pats on the head that I need as an individual to feel my self-worth. But I was also seeing that I lived in someone's pool house. We only had one car. I wanted to buy a house. I wanted to have a family. I wanted to move on with my life, and I couldn't. We were stuck in a rut. Both my husband and I were in comfortable work positions, but not in any position to actually move forward. We would look at apartments. We would look at houses. We couldn't afford any of it. And he was sick at home one day, and I got a message on Facebook from friends who had moved to Beijing the previous year to be school teachers. Pre-pandemic, guys, this was at least, 5-7 years ago. And their school was looking for teachers, and I was like, And so I phoned up Helen. I was like, how do you feel? I didn't phone him. I actually texted him. I was like, how do you feel about China? How do you feel about teaching kids in China? And he was like, cool, let's do it. Like, when do you ever find a person that's like, I'm going to give up my architectural illustration job, and we're going to go to within. He's amazing. Have I said this already? But like, I adore him. He's amazing. He is my kind of crazy. So we did the interview, we got the job, and we packed up our little house and our car, and like within 2 months we were in Beijing. Sure. I'd convinced 2 of our friends to come with us who were newly married.
You're in the wrong industry.
And they actually landed one day before us. Yeah. So like within 2 months we were all teaching toddlers in Beijing. Well, not toddlers. Cal taught my husband taught an older age group. They were about 5, but still like little kids. No previous Mandarin experience. No, like I asked all the questions. I did all the research that I possibly could, and it still didn't prepare me for what it was like getting there and actually living in Beijing for a year. But it was the reset and the kind of the rut remover that I needed for my life then, and I look back on it as one of the most pivotal experiences of my life, and I always will. I have this soft, wonderful, warm, little red and gold place in my heart that is China, and despite the complexities of the government and the levels of control that are there for the Chinese people and all their history and all that ugly stuff, there is I love China. I love the food. I love the people. My Mandarin's pretty rubbish, but like I it afforded us the opportunity to have a look at our lives in a completely different way, and a look at the world in a completely different way, like nothing before.
Amazing.
It was phenomenal. I mean, they've closed China down for teachers for the moment, but like if you are looking at doing something like that as a reset, we met so many friends at different ages who chose to do this as a reset in their own lives. It kind of attracts an interesting kind of person to kind of make this shift in there, and to go and teach in that way. But just like the culture, the people, the languages. I mean, we went to because the salaries were so excellent as English teachers in China, we went to like the Philippines for my 30th birthday. Like not like fancy Philippines, but like Philippines isn't fancy. But like we were able to travel, you know, like we could take the holidays. We went to Hong Kong, we went to Vietnam, we went to Thailand. So we did like, since we were in that area of the world, we like lent into Southeast Asia and like just experienced all of it. And it was just phenomenal.
I have one question.
Cool.
Why did you come back? Because all of that sounds amazing.
I know, right? It's so being a teacher in China can be like Never Land. You can stay there forever, and people have. They were. I mean, we were working with teachers who had been there for 17 years.
Wow.
Teaching and earning, and like they'd married locals, and that was just their life now, and it was very attractive. And I could have. It was kind of like not a split door. I don't know. There was always this niggling thing, and there has always been this niggling thing about I want a home and I want a family. And for me, that just wasn't possible in Beijing. The air pollution is a very real thing that you deal with daily. So you have an app on your phone where that's connected to the weather bureau, where you have to check the PM 2.5 particles. So those are the tiny particles that actually go into your lungs. And that's from the carbon emissions and those kinds of things. The pollution's that bad. So you have to wear a mask if it's over like 150, and like the school gets closed down if it's over 500. And I couldn't, and they actually don't know how that affects children just yet. So there aren't enough studies to then show how it affects kids.
Scary.
And I couldn't in good conscience bring a child into that environment. And also like in China as a foreigner, it's not like I needed to own property. I just needed a place that was my own, you know? And that was possible. We had a beautiful little apartment, and like we were navigating China pretty well, in terms of like the day-to-day getting groceries and water and all of those things. I mean, Beijing is a metropolis. You know, so we could find tacos, and we could find we got really good at like spending lots of money on Western food, because that was like a comfort. But why did we leave? My passport was expired, so I'm a dual citizen, so I have a German and South African citizenship, and my South African passport was expiring, and if I'd applied for it from there, it would have taken 8 months, which would have been too long. And so I had to come home regardless of whether we stayed home or went back. And I mean, we made this decision as a couple, but I think it may have been kind of influenced by me, was that like, I missed home. I missed my family. I missed, this was the opportunity to kind of make a little bit of money, have a bit of savings, and come home and like step back into life. And if you stay in Beijing for too long, if you stay for 17 years, then you are just you're an unqualified kindergarten teacher for forever, you know? And so being a graphic designer, being my husband was an architectural illustrator, we couldn't stay for very long and still expect to come back and go back into our professions. You know, like it's an interesting anecdote, and it's an interesting like blip almost in a career path, but long term it just didn't, for me it didn't make sense for us.
But I think, sorry, go for it, Steph.
I just wanted to ask, you guys never considered, you know, exploring your profession, or the profession that you wanted to go in another Asian country? So finding a design job, in even if it was in Beijing, or yeah.
Yeah, we tried. In terms of graphic design, there are, it's a flooded market in China. There are a lot of people who do the jobs that we do. Architectural illustration is such a niche expertise. You know, like my husband knows how to. He does it by hand, and he's you know like. He's you know like it's really beautiful, but it's only kind of valued in certain parts of the world, and it just was never falling into place. Like I have this kind of great comfort that when things are right, they almost fit together, and they happen naturally and organically, and it just wasn't happening. We would go and try and forced, explore and find things. It when it's forced, it never kind of feels right, you know. And like moving to Beijing just like fell together in the most beautiful way. And nothing else kind of felt that way. And even coming back, it took a long time for us to, a lot longer than expected for us to actually find that like comfort and that synergy again of kind of success.
Yeah. I think just a quick thing I want to mention before we sort of move along. I think it's what you're saying is actually pretty important for people to know, like especially when you're on the back of a little bit of a reset, or you know, even if it's the fact that you decide to go and travel for a little bit, it sort of reaches a point where you've reset. It's time to go now.
Yeah,
like, a reset is not a forever
it's done
thing.
its job, right? Yeah.
And so there's something that I kind of want us to get into before like this podcast is over. So I'm going to try and push us forward a little bit, because I really want to find out a little bit about your career, kind of like from where you are now and like right before where you are now, because I think there's a lot that's very useful for people to hear about, and especially for all those people out there who are looking to start a family, whether you are a mom or you're going to be a dad, like just kind of navigating the professional and parental landscape. So if you don't mind, if we can kind of try and take steps towards speaking about that.
Okay, cool. We'll fast forward to ABSA, right? So like there's a position open at ABSA for the open web team. They need a designer. I interview with Ryan Neby. I'm not sure if any of you were able to work with Ryan Neby.
Yeah.
And so I get the job, and I like my first couple of weeks, I'm like, this is quite nice, you know, like I get a pension, I get a payslip, I get, you know, like I get all these benefits. Like the team is nice. The design office is quite, not like a physical office, but like the amount of people that are designers are like, it's big, you know, like we're sitting at 150 designers now, which is like for a design office is big.
Yeah.
And I was like, these are like-minded people, and I'm enjoying my job and I'm doing well, and like, cool, I'm ready. Like this is going to be my professional home. This is where I'm going to build a career. Like I've put all of these puzzle pieces in place. This is it.
Yeah.
So I get pregnant, right? Like not like by mistake, like on purpose. I get pregnant, and we buy a house, and like we do all the adulting things that I've been like dreaming and preparing to do for years. Like I find that beautiful point where this is good, you know, lean into this. And so when I told Neby, I was like, Neby, I'm pregnant. Baby's due in January. He's like, wow, that was fast, eh? It's like, it's nice here. I had a lot of anxiety actually trying to tell him that I was pregnant.
Can imagine.
Because I didn't know what ABSA would do with that information.
There's
a level of sorry.
I wanted to actually pause you there before we continue, because you speaking exactly about a very sensitive, or not as sensitive anymore, but a very still relevant and important topic, especially for, you know, a South African woman, around especially not coming from, years and years of building a design career, so you don't have that reputation to stand on or lean back on. How did you consider, I think a lot of women have this mental juggle going on in their minds about, can I do both? Can I pick baby or can I pick career? Did you think that would have an impact on your career? What was the mental process or just the thinking that you went through?
It was never about my career. Having a baby was not about my career. I don't think even at that point I wasn't aiming for a design director position. I wasn't looking to climb the corporate ladder. It was about are there enough things in place within the company in terms of maternity leave basics and those kinds of things for me to actually execute this plan, for me to do this and still be able to kind of function within my job? And it was yes.
Yeah.
I think ABSA wonderfully offers for 4 months of paid maternity leave, full 100% paid maternity leave, which is nothing I'd ever had in any previous job. In terms of my career, it wasn't about my career. It was about me and my family and wanting a little baby. And I'm not maternal, guys. Let's be completely honest. That au pairing job scarred me. Like I waited until no, I'm not even kidding. I waited until I was like 32 to have a child.
Yeah.
And I come from like a long line of like socially within my community, people have babies straight out of like, they don't even go to university and they're starting their family and having 4 or 5 kids. And I'm just like being left behind. And they're like, you're old and you're dried up inside and you're never having children and you're not, like, and I wasn't ready. I wasn't in a place mentally where I could be like, my past experience doesn't define the mother that I'm going to be in the future. And don't get me wrong, I love those au pair kids. I love them like they were my own. It was just a really difficult situation there.
Yeah.
But it had an effect on the way that I felt like I could function as a mother and moving forward. But it wasn't about my career. Unfortunately, I wish I'd planned that better. But once I had Runa, or leading up to knowing that my maternity leave was coming, it was all about what's happening next. Where am I planning? Where am I going? What am I doing? There's like a laser focus that happens, or at least happened for me, when I decided to make this leap into being a mom. What's happening next in my career? And like there was a lot of tumult in the business at the time, in the time that I was pregnant and in the time that I was on maternity leave. My team was shrinking, so we had designers that were leaving. The head of design resigned, and then my design director resigned.
Wow.
And I'm pregnant, and I'm completely anxious about what's going to happen when I come back from maternity leave. Like every single day, like trying to be like super cool about it. Like, yeah, this is fine. But also I'm watching everything that's happening and I need to know where I'm going to land. And I had multiple conversations with Nibi about, you're leaving, you're going to Singapore and you're leaving me. What's going to happen, when you're gone and I come back and there's nobody here. And he was like, no, it's going to be fine. I mean, he had the experience of people having, like Nelry Vensky had just had her baby, and like she was cool and fun and everybody was lekker with it and all of those kinds of things. And Savan, sorry, these are Diddies that were having children around about the same time as me. And so he had the comfort that this was going to be okay, but I didn't know. I didn't know because of my past experience. I didn't take things for face value, and I wasn't going to be like, yeah, everything's okay, sure. Like I'm just watching everything. I start to like, even though all of this stuff is happening, I'm establishing myself in the design office. So I'm establishing myself in the web space, becoming like the designer to go to when you have questions about Koza, web, any sort of like ABSA unauthenticated platform. I am integrating with all the supporting teams, devs, authoring content. I'm making sure that I'm doing my job and I'm doing it well. Because I've got something to prove here. You know, like I've got a foundation that I need to set, because when I come back, you better know I'm coming. You know,
over planning, over preparing. Sounds like a lot of women.
Over planning, over preparing. You totally get me. And what was happening is that I was almost like intoxicated by like the coolness that is the design office, where you can get involved in absolutely anything if you just stick up your hand. Like, yeah, you want to design icons? No problem. Come, we're doing this thing. We need to get it done. Brands launching, blah, blah, blah. You need to design a website in 2 months? Okay, let's get it done. You know, like there is like this really kind of cool experience in the design office at ABSA where it allows you to be as involved as you want to be, as driven, as ambitious, as, you know, like, and I really took that with both hands. Like, cool, being pregnant was complicated and all that kind of stuff, but also like, look at this cool environment I'm working in now. And like, I was just really excited about all of it. And so then, cool, I have my baby. No, I don't have my baby. I'm so stressed. They put me in as temporary design lead because the Diddy's now left and now they got nobody to like look after the designers there. I'm temporary design lead 4 months before I'm supposed to give birth. To like huge stress. Like we've just launched the new brand. We're having to align all the other, so app, web, authenticated web, all in the same kind of look and feel now. And so we're having these like big meetings and I'm there like, okay, we've got to figure this out. We're going to do this. And hottest summer, I don't know, for me, it was the hottest summer on record. I'm heavily pregnant and I'm like overheating in every meeting. And I get put on bed rest 2 months before I have to give birth. Like, I'm irritated, you know, like I'm doing cool things. I'm doing it like I'm design lead, but people are starting to like recognize the work.
Forget that you're pregnant.
I almost forget that I'm pregnant. And so like they put me on bed rest for 2 months and I hate it. Like, cool, I get to like sit in the pool, but I'm like, I'm phoning the office, I'm checking what's happening, I'm feeling anxious about, okay, but I got maternity leave and now I'm like, everyone's going to forget about me. Then I have Runa, that was rad, he's my baby. Cool, being a new mom, really hard. Really hard, like harder than anybody tells you. He's not a sleeper and that sucks. And so I'm not sleeping and like, it sucks.
Sure.
But I'm still worried about work. I'm not one of those like chill chicks that can like I'm saying this like I'm really cool, but I'm not. I'm like super anxious. So I'm phoning into the office. Hey, how's it going? You guys okay? Can I help you? You know, like, what's going on? What's happening with this person? You know, like, oh, that's fun. I can't let go. And so, and then I get a call to, sorry.
No worries. And it's sort of it's kind of on the path that you're speaking about, but I almost want to be a little bit more direct about it because, I mean, firstly, being a dude, I'm never going to go through the process of maternity leave. But a question that I do have is about that process of actually being away from work for 4 months, knowing that you're going to go back. Like, I'd almost like you to be a little bit more explicit about the questions that are going through your head while you're at home, sort of like having to, it's almost like being under house arrest in a sense, but knowing that you're going back and like what's going through your mind at that time, because I'm sure there's a lot of anxiety because you have to think about like you're stepping into a new space as a parent and as a married couple, but then there's also like having to pick up where you left off, if it's even picking up where you left off, because it's not like everybody goes on maternity leave at the same time. Everyone's kind of going on. So like, what's going through your mind at that time?
Yeah. So like, some people think it's a 4-month holiday, and it's not. It's like the biggest learning curve you've ever had. It's all the things. All like, I don't know. For me, it's all the things that I'm worst at like maximum hardness level. Or like the stakes are really, really high, right? Because you're trying to keep this little fragile baby alive. And you're doing it on little to no sleep. Like literally, like I didn't know before having Runa, I didn't know that I could actually function on 2 hours of sleep and then go to work and have a full work day and come home.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know that it was physically possible, but it is. It is. And I talk about parenthood as being like everything everyone promises it will be, like the best, absolute best experience, but also the worst. It's simultaneously like the most amazing thing and the hardest thing you've ever done. And I love being a mom, and regardless of whatever was happening at work and in my career or what was going to happen in the future, I knew that I wanted this baby. I loved this baby. He was everything. And it's balancing kind of that relationship with your partner. It's balancing kind of the attention that you would give each other that you're actually no longer able to. It's now like 100% on baby, and then navigating your relationship now in this new way that will then continue to evolve as he is able to do more things for himself. It's kind of sending my husband off to work in the morning after he's slept just as little as I have, and knowing that he's going to have a full day at work and he can't like sit and cuddle a baby with me, or like have a nap or have a rest, and like seeing him come home exhausted and then still saying, please take this baby. He's been on my body all day and I can't anymore. Just like that mental, there's like this weird like break that happens where like you don't want to be touched by anyone. You don't want to like be near anybody. You just need like a little bit of like brain space that is your own, that doesn't belong to a little baby or your partner. It's the weirdest thing. And as we look at kind of what that looks like coming to the end of the maternity leave and preparing for work again, there's a lot of self-doubt around, do I remember how to do this? Am I going to have a place anymore? Will I like just slot in and carry on? Or like, what is the learning curve going to be? Is there a job for me? Will people look at me the same way as being as capable? Or am I now fragile and broken because now, like you haven't been here for 4 months and now you're a mom. So like half your brain's garbage, or half your brain is baby. And so coming back to work, it was really important to me. There was a significant shift in terms of the way that I dressed, the way that I looked after myself, the way that I came into work. I instantly started to kind of dress a little bit more formally, not as like relaxed as we would in the design office generally, because I needed to make that mental shift because I'm in business now. Like now it was time to work. When I'm home, I'm a mom, but when I come to work, I'm ready, like I got my war paint on, I got my, I feel good, I feel confident, and like, and now I'm going to go hit it. And kind of, Alfia, I see that we are running out of time a little bit. I'm going to try and get into that design director space. Sorry, Steph. And I came back and I was still just a designer. Like we still didn't have a design director in the space. The designer that I left behind, she did a phenomenal job, but she was a junior. She was a junior, and they completely, the team that was there supporting the design work, like implementing the stuff we were designing, just like completely took advantage of that, and they bullied her, and they're like, so when I was calling in, she was saying, like this lady's being really mean to me, and I'm trying to do my thing, and I'm trying to stand my ground, but she's like being pushy, and she, and so like I'm now mommying my little baby, and then I have this and then I feel like I need to mommy her, which I don't because she's an adult, but you know what I'm saying? I care for her. And so coming back, I saw that this position was open. The steady position hadn't been filled, and I was the interim lead before that, because they were going to hire someone while I was on maternity leave. Also, sucky, right? I couldn't even apply for the job. And then I was like, no, actually, this is mine. This job is mine because I've been doing this job for so long now. And I decided that I wanted it. And so I went to actually, this is where Alex comes in, because I went to Alex because he was kind of he was my daddy at that point. He was the person that was filling in that space. And I was like, I want this thing. You know, like he was starting to give me that responsibility anyway. But I'm like, cool, when is this position opening? I want to apply for it. I want, like, this is what I want. What do I need to do? And he had like the most amazing kind of like faith in me. He was like, cool, you do this, 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 and this. And the first thing he had me do was listen to audiobooks. So he gave me a stack of 6 and he was like, go and do this thing. Even if you only hear half of it, go and do these, go and like read these areas, because these are your growth areas. And this is what you need in order to start elevating the way that you're thinking from just being a designer to start to think like a design director, in terms of kind of expanding your focus and taking kind of a step back and looking at the overall picture and the strategy of how the channel, the website is actually functioning and what its future could be.
What are some of those books that you listen to out of interest?
So they're all in my article, but the ones that I remember are 0 to 1. It was multipliers. It was 0 to 1 multipliers. I can't remember the list now, but
I can give you a hand there. So it was the 5 dysfunctions of a team, competing against luck, inspired, 0 to 1, and multipliers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And those are all really phenomenal because it gave me different perspectives, not only on how to manage a team, but also to kind of change the way that I'm thinking about design, change the way that I'm thinking about the work that I'm doing. And he actually challenged me as well to then say, okay, now look at your space. You've been here for long enough. What's coming for the future? Because that's what I was doing in my maternity leave anyway. I was like, oh, when I get back, we're going to do this, 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 and this. And this is what we need. And this is what we're going to do. And like, so when I went into that interview, I slammed all the things, you know, like I was so prepped and so ready that I went in there and I actually said in the interview, like, I've been doing this job for ages already. Like I literally said that it came, like, can you imagine the arrogance of someone coming into an interview with you to say like, I've been doing this job already. But it wasn't just that. It was that I knew that like this is the website that shifts that has the opportunity to shift our share price. I apologize for that background noise. This is the, you know, like this is what we can do to grow it in this way. This is our gap in this way, and like this is how I think we should fill it. I had my own perspective around how it should move forward, and it was independent from anything that was happening in terms of like the politics or the crazy things that were happening above my head, because I was at the coalface. I knew exactly what was happening there. I was the expert in that space because I'd been there for that long.
Yeah.
And I was able to go into that interview really confident. I've never gone into an interview that confidently, but I was, you know, like I knew that Alex was rooting for me. I knew that I knew my space. I knew that I was prepared, and I'd put in the work. And it wasn't like I walked out of this being like, I'm done, you know, like I got it, no problem. I was interviewing at the same, you know, like with other people that I thought were well suited for the position as well. I had already, like before I went on maternity leave, I was like, okay, this person's going to get it, this person's going to get it. You know, like I could identify at least 2 or 3 people that while I was on maternity leave were going to get that job. And I was totally cool, and I was psyched to be working with them, and like, but I knew when I came back and that position was still open, I was like, it's mine. I'm getting it. Not because it was going to be an easy win, but because I knew it was that falling into place thing. Yeah. You know, it was that
felt natural.
I've done the work, I've done the preparation. I'm ready for this now. You know?
Yeah.
And like, don't get me wrong. I've been a design director for about 2 years now, and it's and I'm still learning so much. There's so much, just like once you step into this position, then it's a whole new level of like boulders and things to learn, and like stuff that you're not good at, and like, oh man, the Excel spreadsheets. I wish I could run away from Excel spreadsheets. But like there are some like really amazing things about being a design director, and it's all about the people that you work with. And like, yeah, it sounds cheesy, right? But like, I have the opportunity to speak with 11 designers every week and look at their career growth and like focus on them and focus on the things that they can do and be, and, you know, like, and make plans to make that happen, and like do this thing for them. Read this book, do this thing. Let's have a chat about this. You're struggling a little bit in this area. Let's do that. Like, how is your project going? you know, and like that is some of the most rewarding stuff. Harder stuff, like I had someone resign this week, and like, just like heartbreaking. She was actually headhunted by another company, and it was a fantastic offer that she like turned down, and then like they came back and offered her something else, and so like it just made sense for her. But like I'm invested in like
people.
I'm invested in the designers and my team as people.
Yeah.
You know, like regardless of whether they work with us or move on. And I think that's one of the great things about what I get to do now, is that it's creative, and it fits into all the things that I love to do. It fits into teaching. And I mean, sometimes you got to tap dance and put on the Barney suit and make sure that like business understands the journey and like why you're doing the thing you're doing. And like, but it's also about like the individual people. And I think that's some of the most rewarding stuff that comes out of being in this position. And you have to love people. If you want to be a design director, unfortunately, you have to love people. Sometimes people are really hard and difficult to kind of work out, but like that's what comes with that step in your career if you want to go into that managerial kind of aspect of design.
And when we started this podcast, you made a point of saying your path wasn't very linear or natural, but now reflecting back on what I've heard, if I think about your journey and especially your teaching part of your journey, you know, investing in individual people, seeing them grow, being a people person, working with people and helping invest in their future. That's kind of what you're doing now as well, right? Just applying it in a different way. And there's obviously a little bit of niches around that. But maybe to start ending off, I wanted to go back to the confidence you had to go for this design director role. And, you know, you said you were ready, you were prepared, you've already been doing this job for a while. And I think there's so many, especially creatives who are also in that position, and it doesn't matter where they are in their career. They might be a intern wanting to be a new permanent junior, you know, or a graduate. A lot of us feel we've put in the work. We might not feel ready, but we've done the preparation. What advice can you give someone to, I don't know, cultivate their inner Gemma to really kind of, you know, feel and see that they are ready to go for the opportunity, as opposed to wait for someone to say, oh, but you're ready. You've been doing the work. You've been here for a while.
I think for me it's about doing a sense check. You know, so sometimes I'll have designers come to me and they say, I want to be a senior designer. I want to be a design project lead. I'm ready. And actually, when we go down and look at these are the requirements of the role. These are the things that you're currently achieving, but these are the areas in which you have gaps. These are the areas which you need to grow in order to actually go into that interview really confidently and like own it, you know? It's important to do a sense check. So like, don't go and be like a junior designer and come in and say, oh, like I want to be a senior designer and I want it to happen tomorrow and I'm ready. Like make sure that you know your stuff. Make sure that you know that you're hitting all the things that are required from your company and that you're doing those things well and you're excelling, and you're not only doing the core responsibilities of your next role, but you are going beyond that. You can support it with other things, not whether it's thinking of the future in terms of where you can push the work forward, or thinking of like what you want to do in the space. It's you need to be fulfilling the role that you want to be in already before you step into it, and do it and you need to be like realistically doing it, not thinking you're ready and not actually being ready. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And it almost also go ahead, Alfie.
Sorry, Steph, there's a part of that I just want to highlight a little bit, because I feel like it was maybe a little glossed over a little bit, and it was around how you actually do the sense check, because when you're speaking about your role, you sort of did that sense check with Alex, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the really important thing, because sometimes you can do an internal sense check and you just end up telling yourself like, oh, I can do this. I can do this one as well. I'm so great.
Yeah.
I'm so I'm ready for this thing. But I think having that external person look at your career and you having to tell them how you've actually managed to do each of the things either makes it clear to you that you're ready, or it makes clear the areas that you actually need to grow.
I think that's a really good point, and that's exactly what I mean by a sense check. It's finding somebody that believes in you and that wants good things for you. Because I think there's some mean people out there, but find somebody that you trust and that you believe in, and that believes in you and believes in your growth, and is that mentor for you. That if you do have those gaps, that they can help you work out how to fill them or how to grow into those spaces so that you can meet those requirements. Because for me, after having gone into that interview super confident, I never want to go into an interview again not feeling that way. Like there is something like really amazing about stepping in there and being and like owning the space and like being able to like not be afraid and not be anxious and not be nervous. Nerves keep you a little bit frosty, which is not a bad thing, but but knowing that you know your stuff is helps with that confidence in interviews. But I think finding that person that can help you identify your gaps was one of the pivotal things for me.
Yeah. Amazing. Cool. Gemma, I think we're right about at the end of this conversation, and I have to say I've really enjoyed it. I read the article when it first came out. I read it again when we right before we were going to do this. But actually hearing the story from you, it's been super inspirational, and I think something that a lot of people can relate to, because especially when you're in the early stages of your career, or when you're on the back of like maybe a little bit of a dip or a little bit of a rut, it can seem like there's no way forward. And so it's always great to hear someone who's kind of powered through all of that challenge and is now like one of the amazing leaders at ABSA, like kind of guiding the ship of designers at ABSA. So first, I guess I want to say thanks for your time. And maybe one last thing that I would say is where can maybe people look out for you? Is there anything specific that you're looking to do soon? Any place that you think people might want to follow you? Is there anything like that?
I'm not very good at being a celebrity. I'm not. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I actually have no followers on Twitter, so if you want to see me on Twitter, I'm there. Faerch.
Cool.
But yeah, like if you're looking to connect, then please reach out on LinkedIn at least. I'm happy to chat.
Are you going to be writing more articles? Is that something we can look out for?
Yeah, I've got one. So I did a talk in virtually for a conference in Spain this year around color vision deficiency and designing for that. And so that's going to be, I'm refining that at the moment. So look out for that one. It's quite an interesting topic.
Amazing.
And who knows, maybe there's a mommy one coming, right?
Yeah,
please.
Definitely.
Please.
We will post those links in the podcast as well, so people can go read the article we've been speaking about and follow you on Medium so they can see what is coming next. But yeah, to echo what Alfie said, it's been so great getting to know you. I mean, we've been working at the same company, but due to COVID, we haven't actually met, and I got to know you so much better, which it's been amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time, guys. This was so fun.
Definitely. And thanks.
Best of luck with your podcast. It's very cool.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gemma.
I really appreciate it. And to everybody listening, thanks so much for this hour that you have given us. That's one last thing. So if you are looking for that article, it's called An Alternative Path to Design in the ABSA Bootcamp Medium publication. And with no further ado, thank you guys for your time and goodbye.
See you next week.